Yeah! Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Maurice Brown Comedy Show on Bog Radio. Uh, hey, we got a great show for you today. Hanging out with the usual suspects, Antoine, A.S. Stewart, and my nephew, Caleb Lopes. What's up, fellas?
What's up, y'all?
What's going on, fellas?
So, we got a lot to cover in this week's edition of the NFL Week 3 edition of the Maurice Brown Comedy Show. A lot of interesting developments from the field on uh, last night, an unexpected win by Kirk Cousins and the Falcons over the Eagles. And then, of course, on Sunday, we had a lot of interesting things develop there. A very, I just want to talk about last night, just straight up, since it just happened fresh and in front of us. Kirk Cousins was a guy that we thought might still be injured, and he really didn't play that well. But down the stretch, the Eagles kind of gave that game away. 22-21 was the final score in that one. Stu, what are your thoughts on how everything went down last night?
Yeah, it was a close game, and it came down to the end. And unfortunately for the Eagles, they were unable. Saquon dropped that pass, and they were unable to score in that position in that possession. So Atlanta was able to go down the field and get it done. Sometimes it's going to be like that. Every game is not going to be a blowout. And then this year to start the season off, we've had a lot of upsets, a lot of close games, going down to that last second, that last drive, and Atlanta was able to come away with the win. I think Philly is an overall better team, but sometimes the better team loses.
Caleb, your thoughts on last night's matchup, the Falcons and the Eagles. Did you think the Eagles were the better team and they just blew it?
I mean, when you look on paper, yeah, of course you're gonna pick a team with Saquon, with Jalen Hurts, with a great wide receiver duo. I mean, they should be better, but we watched the whole game. We watched 60 minutes of football last night, and it doesn't really matter. Oh, I have this, I have that. You have to get on the field and put on your pads, put on your helmet, and show out. The game wasn't the prettiest on either side, but what matters is Atlanta came out with the win. They went down the field, got it done, and I feel like that's what it comes down to. It's whoever puts the last points on the board, and when the clock hits 0-0 and the rest blow the whistle, whoever's up is up. It's doesn't really matter who's the quote unquote better team.
Well, we're early in the season. We still really don't know what we're looking at, and I think we're trying to base our present opinions on what happened last year going into the season. But I think the reality is this is a different year, and there's some teams that are going to be in the hunt that we didn't consider, and it's taking on a personality of its own, and it's a weird start. And I think the weirdness is going to go away for some of these teams. We're going to get back to what we thought it would be, and then there's going to be some new players at the table, at the poker table. They're gonna bring the cash. They're gonna sit down. Hey man, I got my money, man. What's up? I want in, and we're gonna have to let them sit at the table. So there's some surprises. One of those surprises are the New Orleans Saints. As we look at Sunday's results, 44-19 in Dallas. Now, it wasn't a surprise that Dallas, just threw up all over the place. That's what they do. But the Saints, for the second straight week, have just essentially pep slapped the team in front of them. And this time it happened to be the Dallas Cowboys. Your impressions of the New Orleans Saints, Stu?
Saints are for real. They are for real. They had a really good defense. They got weapons on the offense. They just needed somebody who can operate from that quarterback position. Kamara's still, doing his thing, elusive out the backfield. They got weapons on the outside, and Derek Carr, he can play. we've only seen him play in Oakland. But you know, around sometimes, just like with Baker, you need a different environment. You need a you need a different culture there. You got different guys there. Um, and it's kind of plug and play. They needed someone just like Tampa Bay did to solidify that quarterback position. They had the pieces around, and it seems to me that he's that perfect fit with that situation because everything's clicking. So I definitely think that they are for real. I agree. Some of these teams, it'll kind of balance itself out. I don't think the Saints are one of those teams just because of the defense and their ability to run the ball and make the plays down the field.
Right now, I'm thinking the Saints are not going to go away, barring a major injury to a guy like
Yeah.
Alvin Kamara, who's huge, and other key components on defense. They appear to be the real deal. It's early, but they've got everyone's attention. Green Bay 16-10 over the Colts. Buffalo 31-10 over Miami. Tua Tagovailoa going out of that game. We're going to talk more about Tua a little bit later on in the show. The Raiders 26, the Ravens 23. Caleb, concerns in Baltimore, or will things just simply get better and we can all just understand Baltimore is Baltimore? This is just a rough start to the season.
I think things have to get better, but it is a little bit concerning. Uh, I feel like we let it slide last week because it was the Kansas City Chiefs, reigning Super Bowl champs. But then you come down at home and you lose to the Raiders. It's kind of ugly. It's not something we expect to see from such a high caliber, or so we thought, high caliber team like the Ravens. But I think things should even out. A lot of good teams like can think about the Bengals that season that they went to the Super Bowl. They started out 0-3. So things should even out. I would hope so, or else they might have a problem.
Uh, they might have a problem. So they're starting out 0-2. We'll see. We've got a long season, 17
Yeah.
games. We'll see. Cleveland 18-10 over the Jags. The Jets 24-17 over Tennessee. Aaron Rodgers gets a win to start out the season healthy. Minnesota shocking everyone out of the gate, 23-17. It was one thing to knock the Giants around. It's quite another to beat the 49ers and with a guy named Sam Darnold. But we'll talk about them a little bit later on in the show as well. The Chargers 26-3 over the Panthers. Bryce Young is going to be benched in favor of Andy Dalton. We'll talk about that a little bit later on in the show. Also in week 2, Seattle 23-20 over the Patriots. The Commanders get on the board 21-18. I don't know if that's anything to celebrate. They barely beat a very poor Giant team, but they did get the win. So they're 1-1. The Bucks go into Detroit and they take it to the Detroit Lions, 20-16. Is it time, Stu, to consider the Bucks a team that can have a seat at the big boy table?
Most definitely. If I'm not mistaken, they made the playoffs last year.
Yes, they did.
So they're showing you that wasn't a fluke.
Right.
So I think that the Bucks, as the Saints, even more so with the Bucks because of what they did last year, they're showing you they're for real. They got dogs on the outside. They got defense, they got run game, they got everything. So, and Baker is playing out of his mind right now. So seems like everything's clicking for him. And that's why, that change of scenery benefited him. He needed to be in a winning environment. Sometimes playing on these teams like Cleveland and, the Jets and stuff like that, where nothing ever goes well there, it just feels like a pit that you're falling into. And he needed that change of scenery, get some Florida sun on him. And he's balling out, man. Hats off to Baker. And he's been consistent, unlike a lot of the other stars starting off this season. So I definitely think that Tampa Bay is for real. And if you do sleep on them, you may walk out of there with a loss. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I don't think there's any doubt about that. I mean, I think we all have to start taking the Bucks seriously. You look at Baker Mayfield, and you're like, yeah, right. No, the Bucks are showing everybody they're here to win the whole thing. They fully intend to go all the way, and so they got everybody's attention now. That was a big one on Sunday in Detroit. The Cardinals, 41-10 over the Rams. The Cardinals are
Yeah.
starting to look like a team that may want to, for everyone at the big boy table to make room for. The Steelers, 13-6 over the Denver Broncos. The Steelers are just cruising along. They're not looking pretty, but they are 2-0. The Chiefs, 26-25 over the Bengals, a game in which I thought the Bengals had in the bag. And we're going to talk about that game a little bit later. They had it, but at the end of the day, the Chiefs do what they do. They find a way to win this game. And then we just talked about the Falcons and the Eagles 22-21 last night on Monday Night Football. A heck of a game. And Kirk Cousins doing his thing once again. And so, I mean, hats off to Kirk. We all thought he was injured, but it looks like he's getting better. I think he's still injured. I don't think he's 100%. He didn't have a great game, but he did what he needed to do to get the W. Let's look at some NFL headlines. Tua Tagovailoa, I mentioned earlier, was he was knocked out. I think it's his fourth concussion in I think the last 5 seasons, going maybe even back to Alabama, and they knocked him out 2 years ago, and they had to medevac him to the hospital. I said on this show 2 years ago, I don't think he should play again. And he came back last season, didn't have any issues on the field. And last night, or not last night, but last week, last Thursday night, he gets knocked out again. His arm goes up. He's fencing, and it was a very scary scene. And he was hit by Damar Hamlin, who actually had a similar experience on the field and had to be medevaced out and that type of thing. But the question is this: should Tua Tagovailoa come back and play again this season, Stu, or ever again?
I don't think so. I think that's something he's going to have to sit down with his family and the doctors and take a real hard look and assessment of the situation. I know that he has a passion and he loves the game. He's playing at the highest level in the NFL. But there comes a point in your life where your health is more important than
Right, right.
he should have made enough money. And I know the NFL has a retirement plan and they have a healthcare and stuff like that, to where, look, man, it's time to hang it up, because I don't know if he has a family, or if, with his family and or having a wife and kids and thinking about your grandkids and thinking about the future. That's something that he should put at a higher priority than playing football right now. You've played in the NFL for a little bit, made some money, and now it's time to hang it up. Not because he wants to, but because that's what his body's telling him to. And a lot of times when you ignore what your body is telling you to, bad things happen. He's been getting warning signs for the past couple of years that it's time, and hopefully he heeds those warning signs and actually considers a retirement before a hit happens and it has some effects to his brain that changes the rest of his life. We don't know the long-term effects that he has, as we're getting more information on CTE and all of these reports coming out, and we're learning more about the disease. He may have long-term effects right now, and it's only going to get worse if he continues to play this game that we all love, because you're going to get hit again. You're going to he hit Damar. You're going to run into someone. you're going to fall on the ground. You know, it's going to be a moment when your head touches something, and if it causes a concussion easier, and it becomes more easier to get that, you know, it could be real bad for him. So hopefully he considers all these things, and he realizes that it's time to hang it up.
Caleb, your thoughts on Tua Tagovailoa? Should he play again this season? They did put him on IR today, so he's going to be sitting for at least the next 4 weeks. Or should he ever play again? Your thoughts?
It shouldn't be really a question. This season, most definitely not. And I don't think that that's even that shouldn't be a viable option for uh, the Dolphins organization. For him, he should at least take the season off. If he ever should play again, like Stu said, that's something you have to sit down, talk to your family about, talk talk to yourself, see if like in health perspective, of course he shouldn't be playing. It's four or five concussions in the past 3 years. It's nothing you want to be playing around with. But it's real ugly. And the NFL, if something worse does happen, is gonna get a whole lot of backlash for letting him play, for allowing someone who's had problems, who's been knocked out for this is his second time, I think, getting done like this. And it's real ugly. It's gonna be a hard decision, but it feels me that there's life outside of football. And it's not like just because you're not putting on shoulder pads or putting on a helmet every single weekend to go out there and play doesn't mean that you can't be involved on the Dolphins. You can't become a coach. You can't become a manager or something like that. But I think it is time for Tua to hang it up, because I don't think anyone wants to see this happen or anything worse than this happen to him, because it'd be real ugly.
Here's the reality, and I'm 60 years old, so I got some age on me. I played football when I was in high school. I've been knocked silly on numerous occasions, and we're just talking about high school football. But there have been guys like Roger Staubach and other big names that have had tons of concussions. And what was the old adage back in the day? Hey, put some dirt on it and get back out there. I mean, literally after waking up after a big shot, and 2 plays later, and a shot of Gatorade, and you're back out there. And now we didn't have the information then that we have now. If we had known then what we know now, a lot of guys may have cut their career short. And now that we have the information, I think Tua Tagovailoa, unfortunately, is a guy that has to look in the mirror, along with his family and friends and loved ones, and as well as coaches and members of the Miami Dolphin organization, and make a hard reality conclusion that, hey, maybe the game has decided that you can't play anymore. Some guys can't stay on the field. Some guys are not built for long term on the field. And we talk about football, it's a violent game. This is not touch tag, it's not powder puff football, and it's not all the other sports. Football is what it is violent. It's not a contact sport, it's a violent sport. And you put your life on the line when you're out there, and you have to make solid decisions and go, wait a minute, I got my bag, I have generational wealth. um, hey, it's time to walk away and be able to enjoy my loved ones, enjoy the large yes that I have, and go on and live your life. And it's hard. It's easy for me on the outside looking in to say that, but I think now with the information again, Stu, you alluded to CTE. We know what these hits do to the brain and to the body, for that matter. And once you get enough information and you realize that, hey, it's time to maybe think about quitting, unfortunately, that's what you got to do. We'll see what happens. Like I said, they put him on IR for 4 weeks. And I think this is going to give the Dolphins organization, as well as to his loved ones, a chance to really talk about this and come to a reasonable and practical solution. You hate seeing it. I love Tua. He's a great athlete, great quarterback, great arm, all of those things. But now life has gotten in. I don't want to say life has gotten in the way. Life has showed itself. It's a game. It's not life. So we'll see what happens with Tua. We'll move on to our next headline. And I talked about Baker Mayfield. And I said, last week on this show, I said it might be time maybe to put a little respect on Baker's name because I'm not a Baker fan, and I'm honestly looking at him as a flat out bum going back to the beginning of last season in Tampa, and they made the playoffs. Well, guess what? Baker's still balling. My question to you, Stu, is it time to consider Baker Mayfield as a top 10 QB1?
Oh yeah. He's playing like it. The NFL is a week to week league. What have you done for me lately? And Baker has shown some consistency from last year, and he's shown some progression for this year. Doesn't seem like he's taking a step back. It seems like, if anything, he's growing more confident in his players, his playmakers. It feels like they've grown more confident in him and his ability and knowing what he can do in the trenches. So I think that Tampa Bay is a good team. I think going forward, they will be a team that when you see them on your schedule, you know that you in for a dogfight. You know that they're coming to win. This is not the Baker Mayfield we're accustomed to seeing, like, waiting for him to slip up and make a mistake or do something crazy. He has good coaches. He has a good culture. He has good teams on both sides of the ball, and they're a legit threat in the NFC. So I definitely think that the Baker Mayfield that we saw in college finally is in the position to show what he's about.
Caleb, your thoughts on Baker Mayfield and his status as possibly a top 10 quarterback?
He's getting there. You gotta give him his hats off to him. Give him his props, because the turnaround we've seen from him since he got to Tampa Bay has been generational. At that, I feel like everybody had already counted him out as like a bum, and he went ahead, proved us wrong. He has the pieces around him uh, in Tampa, but nonetheless, he has been balling out week to week. He's been winning games. He's been putting up pretty good numbers, and honestly, it he when he got there and going into this season, he was I feel like that final puzzle piece that Tampa Bay needed. Just like when they brought in Tom Brady. After Tom Brady left, they kind of sucked for a little bit. They bring in Baker Mayfield. He was the final puzzle piece for them to be an elite team once again. So uh, I think he has made his case as a top 10 QB1, and we need to be watching out for him, because you can't play around when he's under center anymore.
Ladies and gentlemen, you are listening to the Maurice Brown Comedy Show on bogradio.fm. And this is the NFL edition with Antoine A.S. Stewart and my nephew, Caleb Lopes, who's, by the way, a freshman kicker for his varsity team in Port St. Lucie, Florida. They are a whopping 3-0. And Caleb made a nice kick last week in the game. He's a freshman kicking with the big boys and doing his thing. And a name, folks, to watch out for in the future, Caleb Lopes. Let's look at our next NFL headline. We're talking about some teams that are vying for a spot at the big boy table. The Cardinals, the Vikings, the Saints. Are they, Stu, to be taken seriously as potential NFC powers?
I definitely believe the Saints are. Not too sure about Arizona. I want to see more from them. We know the history of them, and they'll have those flashy games where they look great, and then they'll turn around and not look so hot. They beat the Cowboys last year, ran all over them. Minnesota, I think they're on that line to where the only thing that is stopping me from giving them the all the way thumbs up is the quarterback.
Okay.
We know he can come out and ball for 2-3 games straight, but he's inconsistent, or he has been in the past. So I'm curious to see if he turns around from the inconsistency and he can consistently play at a high level. May not, go out there and tear it up every week, but can you consistently play well enough to win games and put yourself in a position to be in the playoffs? Because other than that, they got a playoff team around them, from the coaching staff, from the offensive line, from the running back Cook. He's back there cooking. The defense is playing hardball, and the scheme that they play with is great. So he has everything around him. He just has to be the guy that they can depend on to consistently get it done. But I think in time we'll see how it plays out with a lot of these other teams, and see as the season progresses. But I definitely think that the Saints are, out of that group, are the team that is more farther along than the Vikings and the Cardinals, only because with the Vikings, the quarterback play, can he stay consistent? And with Arizona, it's the team as a whole, because this is kind of the same team, same quarterback, same running game, same everything. They have their weeks when they're great, and then they have their weeks when you're like, okay, who is these guys? So I think the Saints out of that bunch is the real McCoy.
Caleb, your thoughts on the Cardinals, Vikings, and Saints um, being at the big boy table?
Uh, Talking about Sam Darnold, I think the Saints are here to stay. That, no question about that. We talk about the Cowboys like they're super bad. Sure, they stink it up sometimes, but their defense, it's not like their defense is good. They have a good defense, and the Saints went in there and just completely mollywopped them.
Yeah,
But Sam Darnold and the Vikings, I feel like Sam Darnold is in a similar spot where to how we were talking about Jordan Love last year. He has to get in and not crash the car. But and the way I see it, if he can play and not crash the car and play on a high level, not just be that system QB that can make the little check down throws, throw it to the guy when he's wide open down the field. If he can play on a higher level, the Vikings will be a real scary team.
I think we have to give a lot of credit to Kevin O'Connell. I think
Oh,
he's starting to show his chops as a really good coach in the NFL. Beating San Francisco was a great example for me. I think the way that O'Connell schemes against the 49ers causes Kyle Shanahan problems. And quite frankly and honestly, the Vikings cause a lot of people problems. And they've had a lot of mishaps along the way where injuries are concerned. Kirk Cousins is a great example. But here they are again, 2-0, balling out. And they look like a team to watch out for. Let's look at our next headline, the Baltimore Ravens. I talked about them starting the year out 0-2, and I threw out the question, are they in trouble? And particularly, Stu, after acquiring Derrick Henry. Your thoughts?
Yes, they're in trouble. Are they in too much trouble where they can't turn it around? There's time. It's early, but it's definitely causing for some concern for the head coach and John Harbaugh, for the offensive coordinator, for the organization as a whole, and how they're playing. It's huge red flags.
Yeah.
We gave them so much high praise coming into this, saying that, this is a must-win season for Lamar, at least a Super Bowl trip before we start, putting him in certain categories. And the way they started this out with acquiring Derrick Henry, who a lot of football fans were so excited to see how they would orchestrate their running game utilizing him, and they haven't been able to do it. You spent all this money and resources getting Derrick Henry, who is a beast, and you're not using him. You're not using him correctly. And they have to figure it out and figure it out fast. That their AFC North is too competitive of a division for them to take a slow start. Like Pittsburgh, for an example, are not playing their best ball, but they're 2-0 right now.
Right.
The one thing about them, they know how to win ball games. It may be ugly, it may not be pretty, but they know how to get it done. And Baltimore doesn't want to fall too far behind. Even the Browns, they're 1-1. You don't want to fall too far behind because the AFC is stacked and there are too many good teams to have to try to turn it around. I believe that they will figure it out. The question is, will it be too late? They're going to have to light a fire under everybody. There are going to be some sleepless nights. People going to have to spend the night at the facility, tell the wife and kids, we got to figure this out. It's film work. There's going to be some leadership meetings, calling people out and seeing what the heck is going on. And that's from the top to the bottom, from the coaching staff on down to the players. The coaching staff is not giving the players and putting them in the best position to win. And the players have to do a better job at executing the plays from top to bottom. They need to figure it out fast.
I'm going to throw out another headline here, and I'm going to flip it over to you, Caleb. Did the Bengals on Sunday choke with a lead going down to the last couple of minutes against the Kansas City Chiefs? Did they choke, or did the Chiefs just prove to everybody the only way you can beat them is to bring your A-plus game?
That was the Bengals' game to win. They had it up until the last second, and they did choke. They did choke, and I feel like, of course, the Chiefs, you have to bring everything you've got at them. They're the best team in the league, I'd say, no question. They have the best QB, best head coach. It is what it is. I mean, it's just like if you're gonna play prime Tom Brady, you're gonna bring everything you have at him because you know what you're gonna get. You know it's gonna be crazy throws. It is what it is when you're playing the Chiefs. But the Bengals, they had a dumb PI right at the end of the game, cost them the game, and it really, they could have ended that game early in the fourth quarter. And they just, I don't know what it was. They were in Arrowhead, but it is what it is. The Bengals choked. The Chiefs got another win, and it's just proving their point. The Chiefs are almost an unbeatable team unless you almost get lucky. You have to say that at this point.
I mean, the Chiefs had no right to win that game.
Yeah.
I mean, Patrick Mahomes threw for a pedestrian 170, 160 something yard. Patrick Mahomes. And then you have Isaiah Pacheco going out. His ability to run with the violence that he runs with allows that play action. He gets knocked out. Travis Kelce was a non-factor in this game. Taylor Swift got more coverage than he did. She got more FaceTime than Travis did. Okay. And the Chiefs still win that game. So you look at Kansas City, it's like, they can play a bad game and still win.
That's how it was all last season.
You cannot play that team like everybody else. Mm-hmm. There was a saying about the Pittsburgh Steelers in the 70s when they were winning. There's one league for the Steelers and another league for everybody else. Well, that's how it is with Kansas City. You have to play at almost a superhuman level, meaning don't come out here and make dumb mistakes. That's not asking a lot. You have to play a clean game for 60 minutes if you're going to be the Kansas City Chiefs. They're letting everybody know. So the Bengals had that when they let it get away. Stu, I'm going to flip the next headline to you and go to Bryce Young, who's been benched in Carolina for Andy Dalton. Is this the right call?
I think it is right now. I think he has too much pressure on him. He's not in a great organization, if we're being honest. I think it'll be good for him to let a vet, like Andy Dalton, run the show, and he can learn what he needs to learn and try to figure out what he needs to figure out. In the back of his mind, I don't know if he is trying to stay there for the long term. I know they drafted him, or if he's trying to get a trade. To be honest, unless they do a whole culture switch, a trade may be the best thing for him to go into a new culture without these expectations, and maybe he can revitalize his career. We know he has talent. He just needs the right people to put him in a situation to where they can utilize that talent to the best of his ability and not have too much on his shoulders. Unfortunate, but I think in the long run, that's going to be the best bet for him. And if Andy Dalton can have some success, then we can start looking at, more on the lines of, okay, Bryce, Andy's playing with the same offensive line, with the same group of guys, and he's having success. What's the issue with you? So I think I'm curious to see how Andy Dalton comes out there and plays. If he's able to have a lot of success, he is a vet. He's played at a high level for a long time, and see what the young guy Bryce can learn from him moving forward.
I said it in the beginning that this is before he took his first NFL snap. I said probably would be better if Andy Dalton started the first 4 to 5 games out of the gate, just so Bryce can watch and get an idea of how to play that position. You don't just throw young guys out there into the fire. And unfortunately, it has worked against Bryce Young's maturation as a starting quarterback. Caleb, your thoughts on Bryce Young being benched in Carolina?
It's the right call, but the wrong call at the same time. It's like I doubt Andy Dalton is going to be any better. It's well, he might be a little bit better. He knows the game more. He's been in the league for a while now, but it's just I feel really bad for Bryce Young. He's a talented young QB, and I think honestly right now he has to play for a trade. It's he need like you guys said. I think he needs a culture switch. He needs somewhere new because I feel Carolina is just not going to work out for him. It's it's just gonna ruin talent, and it's almost what happened to Baker Mayfield. We all thought, oh, this guy's coming out of college. He's going to be all that in a bag of chips. He gets thrown in the fire with a bad team, bad time, not great head coaches or coordination, and he just gets lit up. He's the one who takes all the blame because, of course, you're a quarterback. You're the team leader. You win and lose games, but you have to have the people around you. That and Bryce really has nothing. It's almost like he's playing 1 against 11, but it is what it is. I mean, I just feel bad for the dude. Andy Dalton's gonna feel the wrath of playing against that type of playing behind that type of O line this week, and it it's they have a really weird situation down there, and they got to get it figured out because it's bad for both sides.
So you think about quarterbacks struggling that come into the league highly touted. It brings Trevor Lawrence to mind down in Jacksonville. They've started out poorly again at 0-2. Is Trevor Lawrence becoming, Stu, an NFL bust, or can he turn this thing around?
I think he's right on that line of because he's had some success. He's gone to the playoffs. with that team, but he's been inconsistent. Um, Too many highs and lows, and it's no excuse for that. You've been on the same team since you've been drafted. They got to figure it out. That's another team that they got to figure it out. I don't think it's more of the culture. I don't know what it is. We know the kid can play, he can ball, he has the talent, but they got to figure out something that works for him and works for the organization moving forward. We know Tom Coughlin is. I don't know if he's still the president or GM. It's still helping putting that team together, but and he knows how to put together a team. He has Super Bowl rings in New York, so they definitely got to figure out whatever that issue is. With the having a balanced attack from scheme on both sides of the ball. They got to figure it out because he's entering in that place to where does he need to go somewhere else? Does maybe he need to go somewhere else and get a culture change as well? Um, I know he's looking himself in the mirror, trying to figure out, what he needs to change amongst himself, but also what needs to change around him. And if I'm not mistaken, I don't know if he signed an extension or what when his contract is up, but I believe he's approaching that window to where he may want out of Jacksonville.
Well, he just got his bag this
Oh, he
summer.
just got a bag.
Yeah, he just got a bag this
Oh
summer.
wow.
Yeah. He's getting I think he and Jordan Love until Dak recently had the highest new bag contracts in the league. I think Trevor and Jordan both are getting 55 mil a year, something along those lines. So he got his bag. He just got to now, just bring it to the field, his game to the field, and prove the justification for the money that he's gotten. We're going to switch gears over to the NFL Power 5, and I have them listed as follows. Now, this is a power shift right here, guys. But you got to understand it's early in the season, so this is where we are now. And as of right now, I got the New Orleans Saints being the best team in the NFC, followed by the Vikings, the Bucks, and the 49ers and Lions coming up the rear. And I know this is a shock to you, Stu, but your thoughts on the current Power 5 in the NFC?
I like it. Because when we do the Power 5, we're saying as of right now, and not
as of right now. Yes,
right. So I like it. I think the Saints, the Vikings, and the Bucks have earned that right to be the top three. Out of the first two games, I know the season is early. They've played the best in the NFC, and they deserve to be there. I know the 49ers are going to get, that work their issues out. For whatever reason, in playing in Minnesota has been our kryptonite. They beat us last year with Christian McCaffrey, but we were in the Super Bowl, so it's kind of one of those things where I just whatever, they have our number. Moving forward, we gotta get on the winning streak and rack up these wins and establish that we are the best team in the NFC. But as of right now, I think the Saints are playing the best ball in the NFC, and I think that list is pretty fair.
Caleb, your thoughts on this NFC Power 5?
Yeah, 100%. You can't argue with it. It's a week-to-week league, and so far the Saints have been balling out. They've scored almost, I think, more than 100 points these first 2 weeks, and then Vikings, Bucks, they've been on the same deal. Two teams that have big upsets against the two teams that are following up behind them. So, I mean, there's nothing you can really change. I do think it's definitely going to change up a little bit. It's still the first few weeks. But I do like the Saints being there. I think they're going to stay there a long time this season. And they might not even come off.
Well, they might not. I think at this point, the words from the movie 48 Hours said by Eddie Murphy's character, there's a new sheriff in town.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I'm just saying, if the status quo is not holding up thus far, out of the gate the first 2 weeks. These are not the people we expected to be balling out right now. And
Exactly.
so, the traditional thoughts right now are not holding up going into the season. It's early. We're only 2 weeks in, but the New Orleans Saints appear to be a team that's going to have a lot to say about who goes to the Super Bowl. We have a lot of football left to play. No one saw the Saints coming. Now teams will start to scheme against them in a whole different way. By week 6, 7, and 8, we'll find out if they really are the team that is to be feared. Let's switch to the AFC and the Power Five in that conference. I have as follows: Kansas City, without question, still number one, still the one as the song goes. The Chargers follow at 2, Buffalo 3, Houston 4, and the Steelers round out the top 5. Stu, your thoughts?
I think that's a pretty fair list. I would probably move the Bills. Man, I may move them in front of the Chargers only because I gave them a lot of slack and they've been proving me wrong. I mean, they're not no world beaters or anything like that, but Josh Allen has stepped up to the plate and he's balling. He's like, I may not have digs, I may not have certain pieces, but I'm gonna still get it done. And that's what we expect from a guy of his caliber. The Chargers, I love it. Of course, I'm a huge Jim Harbaugh fan with what he did with the 49ers and stuff like that. So I love that change and toughness and running game and grit that I see from them. That they have that Jim Harbaugh DNA all over that team. The Texans, I think they could easily be number 2. They picked up from when they left off. They got talent. That quarterback is phenomenal. They got great coaches. Playmakers on both sides of the ball. And the Steelers, the old faithful, old reliable. They may not be playing their best ball, but they're getting those dubs. And Fields is in a position to where Russell may never see the field. If he continues to win, it's going to be hard to take him out and put Russell in if you're winning.
Right.
So it worked out for him with Russ having that injury. I don't know, what really happened with the injury, or Russ was being smart or trying to like have Justin Fields look bad and he come in and save the day. I would hope not, but he may not get any playing time this year. Russ, he can go to all the Sierra concerts and you're not seeing the field this year.
Yeah.
So I think that's a pretty fair list. Of course, you could play around with who you got at number from 2 to 5. You can pretty play around with it. I think the Chiefs has solidified that number 1 spot. So I'm curious to see how this thing goes.
Caleb, your thoughts on this AFC Power 5?
Yeah, I mean, I'd have to agree with it. It's like you just said, Stu. You can play around with the last 4. I personally would put the Texans above. I would move the Chargers to 4 and bump up both of those teams, the Bills and the Texans, in front of them. But as of right now, until someone can go and beat the Chiefs and show us that they really convincingly went to Arrowhead and it wasn't like they played 4 quarters of football and went in there and won, the Chiefs are going to be at number 1 and they're going to be Super Bowl favorites. Everybody's talking about the three-peat, and the way it's looking, it might happen. So, hey, we're going to have to see. Someone's going to have to step up in the AFC. There's a lot of great teams. But for right now, I'm gonna keep this list how it is. But because all these teams are great.
I mean, they're all really good, and it's pretty tight. I mean, no matter how you slice it, this just a tight a race that's going on right now, and you can take your pick as to who you would go with. As we look at the top, as far as how I'm seeing it, the top 5 teams in the NFL period, just the entire league. I have sort of an interesting list there. I think it's pretty much um, it's. I don't think there's any doubt that the Chiefs are the best team in football, but I have the Saints following them with the Vikings and Chargers coming up the rear, and the Texans. I do not have the Bills, and I do not have what was the other team in the AFC that you got? I definitely don't have the Steelers in this overall top 5 for the league. Stu, your thoughts?
Um, I would take the Vikings out.
Okay.
I would definitely put Tampa Bay in there.
Okay.
Just because at this point I trust Baker over Sam right now. I think that they've picked up right where they left off. You know, it's for Sam Donald. This is a new situation for him. So I would swap the Bucks and the Vikings out.
That's fair.
I would probably put the Texans above the Chargers just from, again, you know, they pretty much have the same team around them. When it gets tough, they can rely on that a little bit more than, you know, the Chargers. Yes, they have the same quarterback, but a new coach, new everything. So, you know, we see how you're doing when things are going your way. How do you respond after a loss? How do you respond after some adversity? That'll be interesting to see from the Chargers. But I think that's a pretty fair list. I'll probably swap the Vikings for the Bucks. And other than that, I think you're spot on.
Caleb, your thoughts on this NFL Power 5?
Honestly, I think I have a little bit to change. Chiefs and Saints at 1 and 2, of course. I like that. But I'm gonna put the Texans at 3, Chargers at 4, and take off the Vikings because I don't think they're there yet. Because I think if I put the Bills at 5, just because I think if those 2 teams went head to head right now, I think I choose the Bills. Just how Josh Allen's playing, the defense has been sturdy, and we expected this to be a kind of rebuild year type of deal for the Bills, but they really don't look like they've shaken at all. They seem like they kept the same culture, same winning ability, and I feel like until they go out there and prove it wrong, I think they have that 5 spot on lockdown. But
So, okay. So we're going to wrap things up with this week 3 matchups coming up Sunday at 1 o'clock. Green Bay and the Titans, the Chargers and the Steelers, 2-0 teams hooking up. The Texans and Vikings, that's going to be a very interesting matchup in Minnesota. We'll find out who's
Wow.
who in that game. The Eagles take on the Saints, the Broncos and the Bucks in Tampa Bay. The Giants go to Cleveland to take on the Browns. Then we have the Bears and the Colts hooking up in Indy at 4:05 on Sunday. We've got the Panthers going to Las Vegas. The Dolphins take on the Seahawks. Skylar Thompson will assume starting QB1 duties for Miami as Tua continues to go under evaluation at 4:25 on Sunday. The Ravens and the Cowboys, 2 teams that have to right their ships, albeit the Cowboys are 1-1. They were embarrassed at home. The Lions and the Cardinals, an excellent matchup. The 49ers and the Rams, a very good NFC West matchup in LA on Sunday Night Football. Later on that evening, the Chiefs travel to Atlanta at 8:20 p.m. on NBC. And on Monday Night Football, a doubleheader where we have at 7:30 p.m. the Commanders taking on the Cincinnati Bengals. And I believe also we have the Jags. Actually, that's going to be at 7:30, and the Bills. And then at 8:15 p.m., it's the Commanders and the Bengals. And you look at all of the slate of games coming up two games rather intrigue me for this week, and one of those would be the Texans and the Vikings, which might be the game of the day. Stu, your thoughts?
Man, it's this is phenomenal how they put these games together.
Yeah.
You can't assume and guess how these teams are going to perform, but how things are looking, this is probably one of the best weeks that we have to look forward to. A lot of these undefeated teams are playing each other. Um, I'm upset about the Sunday night game. You know, that should be a 1 o'clock game. The Atlanta and the Chiefs, y'all can come on at 1 o'clock. Let's have the Texans and Vikings at the 8 o'clock spot. You know, or you can have the Saints play at that 8 o'clock spot. Let's get it on because this is good, man. I'm excited just hearing it, and for people who are playing those pick'ems and stuff, good luck because it's really 50-50. It's not too many gimmies with this week coming. You know, with the Eagles and the Saints, that can go either way. You know, the Saints got an opportunity to prove that they are who we thought they were, that they are, you know, that number 2 team in the league against a gritty Eagles team. This is going to be great. Some great football this week coming.
Yeah, and then coming up on Thursday night to kick off week 3, it's going to be the Patriots and the Jets. And don't sleep on the Patriots. I mean, they are very competitive. The Jets are 1-1. The Patriots are 1-1. This is going to be an NFC East tilt. Believe you me, in New York at the Meadowlands on Thursday night. I'm just telling you, this is going to be a very good matchup as well. As you accurately stated, Stu, a lot of very good matchups. Now, another game that intrigues me will be at 4:25 on Sunday. Ravens Cowboys. Your thoughts on that one, Caleb?
Oh yeah, that's gonna be a great game because if either one of those teams lose, they have a point to prove.
Yeah.
The Ravens need a win, and the Cowboys, if they go down and stink it up again, it's gonna be real ugly. Stephen A. Smith gonna have a day, but
Oh yeah.
it's gonna be a great game, definitely 100%. But I think if I had to choose, give me the Ravens. They have a bigger point to prove. They need to get a win, and that's just how it's gonna roll. At least I think, but it's gonna be a great game.
Yeah, it's going to be a great one. I think the Lions and Cardinals is also going to be a really good game. I think the Lions are going to be on the clock in this one because if they lose that one to Arizona, no one would have figured the Lions would start out 1-2 after the first 3 weeks of the season. But I'm going to tell you right now, they better bring their A game come Sunday because Kyler Murray and Marvin Harrison Jr. have put the league on notice. Y'all going to have to deal with us. I'm just saying. And the Lions better become ready to play. And the 49ers and Rams is going to be a good tilt because I think the Rams are probably going to be salty after the embarrassment at the hands of a division rival. And the 49ers, of course, they're going to be angry. And it's just a division game where both teams are going to be ornery, and it's going to be one to watch. But with that being said, guys, we are going to dip on out of here. It's been a great show, ladies and gentlemen. This has been the Maurice Brown Comedy Show, the NFL edition with Antoine A.S. Stewart and my nephew, Caleb Lopes. This has been, if you've enjoyed the show, like it and share it. You can hear the show in its entirety also on Spotify if you're coming in late. And also, you can catch the replay as well on bogradio.fm if you have missed it this morning. So in the meantime, you guys be safe, be easy, be steady, be peaceful, and may the peace of Christ be with you and your families out there, everybody. God bless.